Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, whenever it is that you see this video. Thank y'all so much for joining us. We're very excited to give some updates on what's happening with the Texas legislature and TAASA's bills and all the bills that have to do with sexual assault that we are tracking. As you know, everything is winding down. It feels like a whirlwind. It feels like it just begun. It also feels like it began 100 years ago. It's like time is warped when you're doing this work. I can't imagine. For me, it is, and I'm not even in the thick of it like Ashley is, so I can't imagine how it feels for her. But we are just very happy with where we are so far, and we're very excited. I know you see Summer Willis down there, so we'll get to that here in a second. But June 2nd is when all this ends, and we'll have way more answers. But we have some great information for you today. But first, before we start that, I'd like to say that the reason why we started doing this, for those of you who this may be your first time watching this video, we do this for two reasons. One is just to keep everyone apprised of what's happening with our work in the Texas legislature. Oftentimes, it's something beyond just emails, something beyond just words on their page. We wanted to just have another way, another medium to provide this information. So that's one. And then number two is just to kind of keep folks engaged with the process, demystify the process just a little bit. It's really convoluted and confusing sometimes, but what we try to do is explain the process just a bit so that folks understand, just kind of how things go. For those of us living in the state, we want to, make sure that if we want to get involved, that there's a way, and how easy it is to get involved, because that's the easy part, is getting involved. So very excited about that. So I will start first by just the budget update, and then I'm going to hand it off, and then we'll just continue our conversation. So the first thing is the budget update. I know that the last time we spoke, I had mentioned that one of the biggest things that we're trying to do is to ensure that we have we call it our Texas VOCA fix. There is still a gap. We are very thankful to the Texas Governor's Office for requesting an exceptional item, whatever it's called. I didn't say it right, but a budget.
No, that's right. Exceptional item.
Okay, good. Thank you. Request to get us almost to the point where we're level funded for VOCA as we were last year. So we're level funded for the next 2 years. There's still a small gap that is vital. That small gap would equate to about a 10%. That's on average reduction in folks' budget, and we know that 10% reduction means there's going to be crime victims that aren't being served. So we are still awaiting to hear how the Texas budget is shaking out. I've heard that it's moving in the right direction. I don't have confirmation, of course, but that is what we're still continuing to watch. There's also a few Office of the Attorney General asks that we have in there that, again, we're waiting to see how all of that shakes out. So we do not have anything to confirm yet. I know that the budget will be done soon. I heard it was going to be done last Friday. It wasn't done. Then I heard, well, it'll be done maybe today or Monday. And anyway, so they're still going through the process there. So as soon as we hear some information about the budget, I know, again, VOCA is on everyone's mind right now. So we will let you all know as soon as we find out. But that's basically the updates of the budget. So from now, I'm going to hand it over to Ashley to give more updates.
Thanks, Rose, for that update on the budget. So we have some exciting news about some of our bills, but the first bill we're going to talk about is the Summer Willis Act. That's House Bill 3073. This is our little engine that could bill that, made it through the House great with only 4 nays, but has been sitting in the Senate Criminal Justice Committee since, I believe, May 5th. But signs are pointing towards a hearing tomorrow, which I guess, depending on when you guys see this, that is May 22nd, Thursday. So fingers crossed it will be heard tomorrow, May 22nd. But there were some exciting developments that happened this week. And since we have our bill's namesake here, Summer, I was wondering, Summer, if you wanted to share about what happened on the Senate floor on Monday, and then the amazing press conference afterwards, because I thought that was all really cool, and I think it raised some great awareness for the bill.
Yeah, I completely agree that it did. And no, thank you, Ashley and Rose, for all y'all's hard work on this bill. I know it means a lot to survivors to finally define consent, to finally tell survivors that their story counts. So yes, on Monday, the Senate recognized me with a resolution for my work for survivors in the state of Texas. And I didn't want to cry, but there are definitely some tears because, 10 years ago after my assault, I would have never imagined that I could have been able to turn that pain into purpose. And I feel like Monday was was a true I don't know, example of a true day that I never would have thought could have happened. And to see every senator sign off on that resolution, to stand up, to clap, to shake my hand, it made me so hopeful that we can actually get this bill passed. So that was amazing. And then survivors show up for one another. And I got to see that because we had people from all over Texas, Lavinia Masters, who you guys have worked with in the past, but Texas Hall of Fame winner. We had someone running for Miss Texas right now in June. Right now, she's Miss Highland Park. She drove in from Dallas. And then we had Virginia Giuffre's family fly in from across the country to stand with us. If you're not familiar with that, Virginia, she was like the number one person against Jeffrey Epstein and Maxine, and she was the one who went after Prince Andrew as well to get justice. And I can't imagine her bravery. And unfortunately, we lost her a couple of weeks ago, and this was the family's first time to do a public appearance, and they came out and supported survivors. So that meant the world. And I think, like you said, we had every Austin station out there, and it worked. I called the Criminal Justice Committee yesterday, and they are like, everyone is calling in about this bill. We hear you guys. And so it's like, yeah, survivors are listening, people care, and hopefully they'll hear this tomorrow.
Thank you, Summer, for that update. And again, everyone, this is the Sexual Assault Survivors Task Force Consent Bill. And the reason we named it after Summer is because Summer's experience speaks directly to a provision in this bill. I know we've talked about it before, but under current law, it states that the perpetrator must intentionally impair the victim by administering a substance in order for that to be considered sexual assault. But if you are intoxicated of your own volition, or if one person drugs you and another person rapes you, that is not considered sexual assault. And the latter was unfortunately the situation that happened in Summer's case. So again, we're hopeful that tomorrow the committee will hear this important bill and we will correct that, what I would consider a dangerous loophole in our current consent law. Thank you so much for joining us, Summer. Is there anything else you'd like to add before you hop off? I know you have 2 little boys probably running around your house right now that need your supervision.
No, yesterday I was calling sexual assault centers in Senator Pete Flores's district, and every single one of them has said, I've been getting the TAASA updates. I know this bill, and I will call in to support. And so I just want to thank you guys for getting the word out there. We're talking and people are listening, and just thank you everyone who's listening for calling in, because I think without your voices, we wouldn't be able to pass this bill, and it wouldn't be hopefully being heard tomorrow. So yeah, thank y'all so much.
Thank you, Summer. You're amazing.
For those of you that were at our Capitol Day may recognize Summer. She was one of our keynote speakers at Capitol Day, and was, kind of really lit this world on fire. I really attribute, Summer, just the progress that this bill has made. It really is. Ashley, of course, because she's getting it through, but I think your passion and everything that you're doing based on your experiences, that resonates so much with other survivors, resonates so much with those of us that do this work and are there beside survivors as these roadblocks keep coming up, and just dumb, stupid roadblocks, right? So it is because of you, and I wanted to thank you so much for joining us back then. And for Samantha Pisick, who y'all two connected, and I really appreciate all of everything that you have done. And again, I know Ashley is behind the scenes, kind of maneuvering, strategizing, and I know it's with that coupled with the fact that with your passion that has fueled, I think, the progress in this. And thank you so much for that.
Yeah, thank you all so much. And thank you, Ashley. I talk to her every single day, and I feel like it's been a tag team effort, and it's working. So thank you, TAASA. And I will talk to you all soon, hopefully tomorrow at the Capitol. And yeah, bye guys.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Okay. So glad Summer was able to join us. She's so amazing. But yes, she did have to hop off. She has two adorable little boys that can't be without supervision for long. So now I'll hop to one of our other bills that still has a little life left in it. I hope we can get a hearing on it in the Senate soon. And that is our emergency contraception for sexual assault victims. I mentioned our last TAASA talk that the organization Texas Right to Life has been fighting against this bill for reasons we can't quite comprehend. This bill will lead to less unwanted pregnancies. And as most people know, emergency contraception only delays ovulation. It does not affect an existing pregnancy. There is still a chance that it will get heard in the Senate by the end of the week. And so just fingers crossed on this one. I do appreciate everyone who has participated in our calls to action on this bill and has reached out to the legislators and the committee offices that we've asked you to. I hope that, that is what will help us get a hearing on this one because it's such an important bill. Okay, and then I'd like to pivot over to a bill that had a great hearing yesterday. And by yesterday, I mean May 20th in the Senate Criminal Justice Committee. Senator Zaffirini laid out the bill beautifully. We had someone from the governor's office on the Sexual Assault Survivors Task Force there. Again, this is the omnibus bill from the task force. And it was voted out of the committee at the end of the hearing unanimously and will now be headed to the Senate floor later this week for final passage. And then we have three bills that have already been passed out of the legislature. I think the most recent one that might not have made it out when we last spoke was our Crime Victims' Rights Enforcement Bill. That bill passed out of the House unanimously, and we were fortunate enough to have Representative Ann Johnson add an amendment on the floor in the House that took the most important provision from the task force consent bill and added it to this bill. So it was the provision that clarifies that the definition of consent that is found within the penal code does in fact apply to sexual assault. And this is going to be amazing for prosecutors trying to hold rapists accountable. It will basically switch the burden back onto the perpetrator to prove that they got consent instead of how it currently is, where the victim has to prove they didn't consent. So we are very excited that that provision has already passed, and this bill is currently sitting on the governor's desk awaiting signature.
I'll say something real quick about that. This is such like this bill, so minus the beautiful addition of the consent. Again, that's that strategy stuff that Ashley and them do so well. But this particular bill, this was our little bill that could last session. We were heartbroken when it didn't make the finish line last session. So to see it come through fruition is just, I can't explain just the gratitude that I have, not only for those folks that are your elected officials who pass this through, but also for Ashley and Kristen for kind of getting this through the finish line. This is one of those things. So yes, there's some provisions in there that are specific to sexual assault, but this crime victims' rights enforcement is for all crime victims. This is one of our overall, that if you work with any crime victim in the state of Texas, this will be beneficial to your work, but most importantly, beneficial to the crime victims that you work with. So this is a huge, significant piece of legislation, again, that we could not get it past the finish line last session. It is now on its way to be signed into law, and I cannot tell you that I'll be celebrating that day, that it's celebrating everything. But this one is really, really, it's one that has a ton in it that will be helpful. So that's all I'll say. I'm excited about it. So I'll stop there.
No, but that made me think. I want to give a shout out to Representative Symphonia Thompson, because without her level of influence in that chamber and just her motivation to get this passed, it might not have. She put her weight behind it, because the House can be hard to pass a bill. There's so many bills, and there's so many places where the bill can just get lost amongst all the others. And she really put her weight behind it and made sure that it got out of the calendars committee, and then that the Senate bill, this is kind of in the weeds here, but that the Senate bill was able to be swapped with it in time for it to be voted out on the House floor. And that she just is truly amazing and deserves a lot of credit for getting this bill passed. And just, we really love working with her. And she's truly amazing woman and representative. Okay, so then one of our bills that has already been signed by the governor, which we're very excited about, is our Tracking Safe Kit Transfer Bill. This is the one that will require SARTs and DPS to report on all of the rape kits that have been left in a healthcare facility and not picked up by law enforcement. Again, the goal of this bill is to shine light on where those rape kits are being left, and hopefully be able to then apply pressure to those law enforcement agencies to collect them. We are very excited to work with Representative Howard and Chair Flores on this bill. And we're very excited to see that the governor has already signed it into law.
Yeah, this is one of those things that I had mentioned before in one of the other TAASA talks, when I talk about how TAASA approaches our work and the bills that we prioritize, that then our membership votes on, and then we try to push through the system, is we really want to hear, and we do listen to what's happening on the ground. And this is one example of that, because these were direct conversations that we've had with those folks on the ground that work with this issue, or that are directly impacted by the fact the kits are either not picked up or they are picked up, or, all those different things, having conversations with DPS, having conversations with Sexual Assault Survivor Task Force, work group members. I mean, this was a culmination of how do we address an issue on the ground. We feel like all of our bills do that, but this just wanted to give an example of how this is something that came out of those discussions. And that's just the approach that we have at TAASA to changing laws. We don't do it just for the fun of it. It is like, how can we truly make an impact, immediate impact in the lives of survivors and the systems they're in. So I'm very excited about this one passing.
Yes, it was a great one to pass. And then our one other bill that has already been signed by the governor is our Victims' Privacy Protection Bill. This was carried by Representative Hall in the House and Senator Paxton in the Senate. And I know we've broken down this bill for you guys before, but it has so many different privacy protections for survivors that we are very excited about. And again, this was, I think, our first bill to pass through the legislature and be signed by the governor. And just thrilled for all the protections it's going to provide survivors, including needing consent for judges to live stream trials, to place sensitive evidence under a protective order so it cannot be disseminated or copied or shared. And Rose, what am I forgetting? What else do we have in that bill? Sorry, it's so late in session. My brain is dead.
Yeah, the pseudonym during the whatever phase.
Yeah, the pseudonym. Yes, to allow victims to request a pseudonym during the prosecution phase, and to also require law enforcement to inform victims of their right to use a pseudonym. So yeah, this is a great bill. Very excited. It's already passed into law. And I think that's our major updates for everything we're working on right now. I know I mentioned last time that unfortunately our bill to eliminate the statute of limitations for adult sexual assault died at the starting line. Unfortunately, we just could not convince the Senate Criminal Justice Committee to hear it. That chair took a firm stance against hearing any statute of limitation bills this session, but we are motivated to work with that office during the interim to hopefully get this moving for next session.
Right, that there's a lot of bills that get filed, a lot of bills that get stuck, and unfortunately, like you said, that was one that there was just this mandate or whatever that we're not going to hear any of these types of bills. But we tried, because that was one of those things that we had heard over and over from survivors and groups, that this is very important that we kind of align this, clear this up, the statute of limitations. And I think if there's any question that I know I personally get from folks, it's always a statute of limitations. What does it mean if it happened then, and then I have this, or I don't have that? So right now that's kind of where the law stands. So we were hoping to kind of get that a little more cleared up. But that's okay. We'll try again. We'll try again next session. And I was just going to say, I feel like that, folks ask all the time, like, wow, TAASA's gotten really good. We've gotten our chops. And we really, I have to say, TAASA has a long legacy of being successful at the ledge. Even before my time as CEO of TAASA, TAASA's done really great work. And I really feel like, and I feel like even now, with the way that Ashley handles things and the way that we're working this together, is I think the secret sauce that people are like, what do you have to, really, it's not a big, it's our North Star with our work, our survivors of sexual assault in Texas. Like, that is we keep our eye on the prize. That is who we are doing this for. No one else, nothing else. It is for survivors. Because adult sexual assault is a crime that is so highly misunderstood. And that misconception has served as a barrier for so long for crime victims, as Summer Willis can attest. And it's done that for far too long. So, but we're happy because this issue, our issue, and the way that we are able to talk about the issue, the way that Ashley is able to go in there and talk about these things, it really has an audience with the Texas legislature, from this end to that end to all the way in the middle. Everyone is still on board that sexual assault is a bad thing, and that we must do everything in our power to have services for victims of sexual assault, for survivors of sexual assault. So I just wanted to say that I'm very thankful for that. And we are very proud of where these bills are and where the session is now. And I'm sure we will have more updates. I know VOCA is the biggest thing, but again, very excited about the impact and the laws that will be on the books very soon because of TAASA, because of Ashley, because of Kristen. So very thankful to y'all, Ashley. And I know Kristen's not here, but I'm very thankful to her, you two, for tag teaming this and really pulling through and pulling up really for survivors of sexual assault. So I just wanted to thank you publicly, Ashley, for everything you're doing. And thank you
again, when you're fighting the good cause, it's not that hard.
All right. Y'all have a good one. Thank you for watching.